when my mother slammed the kitchen door and shouted, "Hand the business to your brother, or forget having a family." Something cold closed inside me. Her words weren't just an order. They were a threat to erase everything I had built with my own blood and sweat. I folded my hands, looked at her without begging, and let that moment become the map for what I would do next. That night, the dining room felt colder than ever. Plates clinked, glasses shimmered. But my mother's words cut through everything. "Give the company to Zoe, or forget having a family," she shouted, her voice sharp, carrying across the table filled with relatives and family friends. I felt every eye on me, waiting to see me crumble, to see me beg. My stomach twisted, and a heavy shame pressed against my chest, but I didn't flinch. I looked at her calmly, steady, refusing to let fear or anger control me. My mother's smile faltered, and the room held its breath. My brother Zoe beamed, basking in their cheers, thinking he had won. But in that moment, something inside me hardened. I folded my hands, straightened my back, and left the room without a word. Each step was loud in my own mind. A promise I whispered to myself. I would never let anyone make me small again. That night, I realized family could try to control me, humiliate me, or shame me, but my own will was stronger than their threats. The sound of the door closing behind me felt like freedom and fire at the same time. I didn't need their approval, their cheers, or their celebrations. I had made my choice, and it was mine alone. From that night on, I knew I would fight for my place, for the business I built with my own hands, and for my dignity. I wasn't just refusing to give up the company. I was refusing to let them erase me. Every hurtful laugh, every proud glance at Zoe, every attempt to shame me became fuel. I walked away from that dinner not broken, but more alive, more determined than ever to prove that respect, love, and success could not be bought or forced. They had to be earned. And in that fire, a quiet, burning plan began to grow inside me, one that would show them that I was unstoppable, unshakable, and unapologetically me. After that night, everything changed. The house felt empty even when it was full. Invitations to family dinners stopped coming. Birthday parties, holidays, even casual gatherings. All of them suddenly ignored me. I called, but no one picked up. My messages were left unread. At family events, my mother smiled as if nothing had happened, pretending I didn't exist. They laughed and clapped for Zoe, praising him as if he had earned everything, never mentioning my name, never asking about the long hours, the deals I closed, or the business I had grown from the ground up. It hurt more than I expected. Every cheer for him felt like a small cut. Every silence directed at me burned like fire. But instead of breaking me, it sparked something stronger. I realized then that their love was conditional. They only celebrated what they could control, what they could claim. If giving up my company was the price for their approval, I would not pay it. I didn't need permission to exist, to succeed, to be proud of myself. The more they tried to erase me, the more I felt my own strength grow. I spent quiet nights thinking, planning, and reminding myself what I had built with my own hands. Their celebrations for Zoe, their laughter, and their ignorance became fuel. I didn't want revenge in the moment, but I wanted to prove something bigger, that I could create a life that didn't depend on their praise, their approval, or their recognition. The cold shoulder, the missed calls, and the empty invitations only made my determination sharper. I started waking up with a new focus, each day planning, working, and imagining a future where I stood taller than their doubts, their expectations, and their favoritism. It was painful, yes, but it was also freeing. I realized that true success would not come from their acceptance. It would come from my own effort, my own courage, and my refusal to bend to anyone else's will. Every slight, every quiet insult, every act of ignoring me lit a stubborn fire inside. I wasn't just surviving without them. I was starting to build a life that could shine without them. And in that ember of pain, a plan began to grow quietly but powerfully. A life, a success, and a name that they could not erase. No matter how loudly they cheered for Zoe, that I threw myself into the business like my life depended on it. Nights turned into long hours at my desk, weekends disappeared, and every spare moment was spent planning, calling, and learning. I met with suppliers, some old and some new, and worked hard to renegotiate contracts so the company could make more profit without cutting corners. I studied legal protections, learned how to secure the business properly, and made sure nothing could be taken from me easily. For the first time, I didn't ask anyone for permission, and I didn't wait for approval. Every decision I made, every deal I closed, belonged to me. At first, the wins were small: a satisfied supplier, a small contract, a shipment delivered on time. But each small victory gave me confidence and proof that I could do this on my own. Slowly, those small wins became bigger. Bigger contracts came in, clients returned, and cash started flowing steadily. The office buzzed with energy again, but it was different this time. The company was alive not because of a family name or because someone expected me to hand it over. It was alive because of the systems, plans, and hard work I had put in. I personally oversaw every step, made sure everything was running smoothly, and learned from every mistake I made. Sometimes I stayed late just to watch how the orders moved, how payments came in, how the team performed. Each day, the business became stronger, more independent, and more mine. People started noticing. Employees were more motivated because they saw leadership and clear plans. Suppliers respected me because I understood the numbers and could make things happen. Clients trusted me because I delivered results. I realized that the company could grow without relying on my family's status, without needing their cheers or their approval. The pride I felt was different. It wasn't loud or flashy, but deep and steady. I was creating something that could not be taken from me unless I let it. Every hour I worked, every contract I signed, every problem I solved built not just the company, but my own confidence and power. By the time months passed, the company was humming with life again, but this time it was mine. Every system I installed, every process I perfected, every client I impressed became proof that I could rise on my own, and that nothing, not my mother's threats, not Zoe's fake praise, not anyone's doubt, could stop me. I was no longer just surviving the family drama. I was thriving because I had rebuilt everything with my own hands, and that made me unstoppable. At a business conference, I stood nervously in front of a small group, pitching my ideas, showing what the company could do, and sharing the plans I had worked on for months. Most people nodded politely, but then Mr. Akand, a well-known investor, stepped forward. He didn't care about my family name or who I was related to. He listened carefully, asked sharp questions, and then, to my surprise, he smiled. "I like your work," he said. "I want to mentor you." I could hardly believe it. Someone of his experience saw me. Not my family, not my brother, not the past. They saw me, my effort, and my results. With him guiding me, I learned things I had never understood before. How to refine a growth plan so it could actually work long-term. How to protect ideas by registering trademarks. And how to think about scaling a business without risking everything. Every meeting with him opened my eyes. He pushed me to think bigger, to plan better, and to execute with precision. I stopped feeling like the heir who was supposed to give everything away and start depending on someone else. Instead, I became the founder, the person in control, the one shaping the company's future. He didn't just give advice. He taught me confidence, strategy, and the power of making people respect results rather than status. Under his mentorship, I began seeing opportunities one had ignored before, and I learned to act on them quickly. Contracts were renegotiated with a stronger position, new products were planned, and every move was calculated for growth. My team began to notice the change too. They saw me taking charge with clear vision and steady decisions. Zoe's fake authority at home and in the company suddenly didn't matter anymore. I had built skills, knowledge, and strategy that made me untouchable in my own business. I was no longer the quiet daughter who could be pushed aside. I became someone the market and competitors had to acknowledge. Mr. Akand's belief in me made me believe in myself even more. He didn't just mentor me. He unlocked a version of myself I hadn't dared to step into. That day, I realized something crucial. It wasn't about family approval or legacy. It was about execution, persistence, and proving through results that I could stand on my own. From that moment, I moved forward with a confidence that no one could ignore, ready to take the company to heights that even my family had never imagined. I had become the founder they couldn't erase or underestimate, and every decision I made reflected that power. I noticed a gap in the market that no one was really paying attention to. I spent nights thinking about what customers needed but weren't getting. Finally, I developed a new product line that solved that problem perfectly. When we launched it, I held my breath, unsure if it would work. But the response was immediate. Orders started coming in, and within weeks, the first batch sold out completely. It was the first real proof that the business could thrive on its own strength, without anyone else's name or influence. Encouraged, I decided to expand carefully. I rented a small, modest second office, enough space for a few people to help manage operations and logistics. I hired 3 local graduates, young and eager, ready to learn and work hard. I trained them myself, teaching them the standards I expected, and they brought fresh energy and ideas into the company. Slowly, word began to spread in trade circles. People in the market started talking about us. Jairo's company is the one to watch, they said, and I felt a quiet pride hearing it from strangers who valued results, not family connections. It was strange but powerful to see how quickly things shifted when the work was done right. While my family celebrated Zoe at home, the real recognition was coming from the market, from clients, suppliers, and partners who cared only about the value we delivered. Each sale, each contract, each satisfied customer felt like a small victory, not just for the company, but for me personally. It was a slow, steady climb back to respect, and it tasted sweeter because no one had handed it to me. I could finally see that the humiliation and attempts to erase me had given me something no one could take, a drive to succeed on my own terms. The company hummed with energy, a quiet force that no one could ignore, even if they tried. I kept building, expanding in small, smart steps, always focusing on quality and service. Every shipment delivered, every happy client, every positive review was a mark of my independence. It didn't matter what my mother or Zoe said. The market only cared about results, and the results were undeniable. My confidence grew with each passing day. I wasn't just rebuilding a business. I was creating a reputation, a legacy that no one could erase. And in that quiet expansion, I felt the first real taste of power, the kind that comes from proving yourself, not begging for approval, and watching the world recognize your worth one step at a time. One morning, I started hearing rumors that things at the company weren't going as smoothly as my family had claimed. Zoe's so-called leadership was showing cracks. Investors were asking tough questions, and clients were complaining about delays and poor quality. Suddenly, the family favorite wasn't so untouchable anymore. Then one afternoon, Zoe appeared at my office door, nervous, hat in hand, asking me to help fix a product line that was failing badly. I could see the fear in his eyes, the realization that he couldn't manage it alone. I listened carefully as he explained the problems, the mistakes, and the pressure from clients. I didn't interrupt, I didn't mock. I just let him speak, letting him realize how serious the situation was. When he finished, I leaned back and made it clear. I would help, but not on his terms, not as someone who gave up control. I proposed a deal. I would step in to fix the problem, but only as a partner with equal rights, oversight, and decision-making power. There would be no hierarchy where I was beneath him. They grumbled. My mother protested silently. Zoe's pride flared, but the reality was undeniable. The failing product line was urgent, and the company's reputation was on the line. The crisis left them no choice but to accept. Over the next days, I got to work immediately, analyzing every step, making changes, coordinating with the team, and implementing fixes quickly and efficiently. Slowly, results started showing. Orders stabilized, clients started responding positively, and the product line was saved. I didn't gloat. I didn't make a show of it. I simply did what was needed while holding my ground on terms that protected my authority and vision. For the first time, the family saw that they couldn't ignore me, that success depended on my skill, my work, and my leadership, not favoritism or family status. Zoe had to acknowledge it, my mother had to acknowledge it, and even the skeptics in the office had to see it. It was a quiet but powerful shift. I was no longer just the daughter they expected to surrender everything to. I was a true partner, a force they couldn't control, and someone whose work and decisions were respected. The situation that had seemed like an opportunity for them to embarrass me became the moment I secured my position permanently, proving that no crisis could weaken me if I stood firm on my principles. From that day, the balance had changed and everyone knew it. Before finalizing our partnership, I insisted on a full, transparent audit and a third-party review. It was a normal step for any serious business, But I knew it would also show the real story of what had been happening while I had been pushed aside. The auditors dug into every record, every invoice, every decision made under Zoe's management. Slowly, the picture became clear. There were missing entries, sloppy bookkeeping, and poor choices that had cost the company money and clients. Mistakes that had been hidden behind polite smiles and excuses at family gatherings were now documented in black and white. The truth that had been quietly ignored or dismissed for years could no longer be denied. I remember sitting with the audit report in my hands, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and vindication. Finally, there was proof. It wasn't about hurting anyone personally. It was about showing reality. My mother, who had demanded I hand over everything to preserve the family image, could no longer hide behind that excuse. The company's problems had never been mine. They had been caused by poor management and reckless decisions. Every page of that report was a quiet confirmation that I had been right all along. Zoe could no longer claim competence, and my mother could no longer argue that handing over the business was the only way to protect the family name. The facts were undeniable, official, and respected by professionals. For the first time, the power of truth was on my side, documented in a way that could not be ignored or dismissed. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to confront anyone loudly. The audit spoke for itself. It shifted the entire dynamic of the company and the family. Decisions would now be based on reality, not favoritism or intimidation. I felt a sense of calm strength, knowing that what had been hidden in whispers and sidelong glances was now out in the open. The company was finally on honest footing, and my role in it could no longer be questioned. The audit didn't just reveal financial missteps. It revealed who had been responsible, who had worked, and who had only relied on appearances. I realized that this transparency was not just a business win. It was a personal triumph. I had stood firm, refused to surrender, and now the world, including my family, had to recognize the truth. For the first time, the argument that had threatened to erase me completely was ended. The business was mine to lead, based on skill, diligence, and undeniable facts. With the audit proving the truth and the product line fixed, it was time to show the world what the company could really do. We relaunched the brand together, but this time the roles were clear. I led operations, made all the key decisions, and ensured every process was smooth and professional. Zoe was given a smaller, manageable role that suited his abilities, but the responsibility for success rested with me. The launch was quiet at first, but the results spoke loudly. Press outlets picked up the story, calling it a revival of the company, and soon the market started noticing. Orders increased, revenue climbed steadily, and customers sent messages praising the improved quality and reliability. People who had once ignored us now wanted to work with us. I could feel the shift. The company was no longer defined by family drama or old rivalries. It was defined by results, by consistency, and by the effort we put in. Even my mother, who had shouted at me to give up everything to Zoe, had to watch quietly as the business stabilized and grew, because I refused to surrender it. There was no gloating, no revenge in words, just the undeniable proof that perseverance and skill mattered more than threats and favoritism. Employees were motivated, suppliers respected the leadership, and clients trusted the brand again. Every email, every call, every satisfied customer felt like a small victory. The world now saw what I had built with my own hands. Even within the family, the dynamic had changed. Zoe had to follow the structure I set. My mother could no longer claim I should step aside, and the respect I had fought for was finally visible to everyone. Watching the company thrive, seeing it rise above the chaos and the demands that once tried to erase me, I felt a quiet sense of triumph. This wasn't about winning over family or proving them wrong in front of a crowd. It was about creating something that could survive, grow, and shine because I had worked for it. The company's revival became my proof that refusing to surrender wasn't stubbornness. It was vision and courage. With every successful launch, every positive review, and every new client, I solidified my place as the true leader. The market didn't care about family drama, and that was the point. Value, dedication, and competence always shine brighter than favoritism or threats. The turnaround was public, undeniable, and permanent. And as I watched the numbers rise and customers respond, I knew this was only the beginning of a success story that no one could erase. Months passed, and life went on with the business growing steadily. Then one afternoon, I received a call from my mother. Her voice was quiet, almost hesitant, completely different from the shouting I had endured years before. There was a problem. A sudden legal dispute that had nothing to do with the company, but it was serious enough that she didn't know how to handle it. She needed advice, someone with knowledge of legal and financial matters to guide her. For a moment, I listened carefully, sensing the humility in her words. I could have refused, I could have let her struggle, but I didn't. I agreed to help, but I was clear about the terms. I would assist, yes, but with boundaries. There would be respect for my role, no shortcuts, no ignoring my decisions, and complete transparency in every step. From the start, I approached it professionally. I reviewed documents, explained the risks, suggested strategies, and guided them on the best path forward. I didn't act out of revenge. I didn't make them feel small or guilty. Instead, I offered clear, practical help. Every step I took reminded them that I was capable, and that their previous assumptions, that I could be pushed aside or ignored, were wrong. Throughout the process, I maintained control of my time and my boundaries. I helped them navigate negotiations, spoke to lawyers on their behalf, and ensured every decision was recorded and transparent. Slowly, the crisis started to resolve. The family began to realize that my skills, my careful planning, and my knowledge were the reasons they were getting through the situation. My mother, who had once demanded I surrender my company to her favorite, now had to acknowledge my value in a completely different way. It was not about winning over her or punishing her. It was about showing that competence, professionalism, and clear boundaries mattered. I learned that helping someone didn't mean giving up power, and that respect could be demanded through skill and consistency, not threats or anger. By the time the legal dispute was resolved, I had helped them safely navigate the crisis, and they had no choice but to respect my role, my authority, and the limits I had set. That day, I realized that true power was quiet and steady. It didn't need drama or shouting to be recognized. I had given help without losing myself, without letting past pain control me, and in doing so, I had ensured that my family could never treat me as expendable again. My mother's call had been a test of humility, and I answered it with professionalism, strength, and boundaries, showing that respect was earned, not demanded, and that I was finally in control of my own life. In the end, my victory didn't come from taking everything or trying to crush Zoe. I didn't need to humiliate anyone or make them suffer. My revenge was quieter, smarter. I rearranged the pieces of the life and business my family thought they could control, so it could thrive without me surrendering anything. I kept the company I had built with my own hands and expanded it into new markets, reaching people and places they had never imagined. I created opportunities for employees and partners who had been overlooked, showing that real success was built on talent, effort, and fairness, not favoritism. My mother and Zoe regained their place in the family, but it was on my terms. I set clear boundaries, made sure my authority and work were respected, and ensured that the business I had nurtured could not be threatened again. The old power dynamics, the threats, the expectations that I would simply hand over everything, no longer existed. Every contract I signed, every office I opened, and every client I served quietly proved that I was in charge. The real revenge wasn't loud or cruel. It was lasting. It was the steady, unshakable proof that I couldn't be erased, ignored, or undervalued. People in the market, clients, and even family now recognized my name first. My mother's attempts to control me, her threats to cut me off, and the years of pressure and shame had all backfired. Instead of breaking me, they had fueled my determination. I had turned every insult, every dismissal, every attempt to erase me into motivation to grow stronger, smarter, and more capable. And in the quiet strength of my achievements, I found the ultimate satisfaction. I didn't need to gloat, and I didn't need to destroy anyone.